Gonna drop my information in the chat as well in case you guys have questions. You can always email me after this, but I'll put my information on there for y'all. Right, got a few more. Give it like 1 or 2 more minutes. Let people trickle on in, and I'll get started here. All right, I'm gonna get this thing rolling for y'all. Once again, thank you guys so much for being here. If y'all have any questions, please pop them in the chat for me. You can let me know. I'll be happy to help you out. You can, at the end of the time here, I'll have my information in the chat as well. You can email me, call me, text me. I'll make some time for all to have questions, but please don't be hesitant if you have any questions, and we'll get this thing rolling. So welcome to Flatiron School webinar. I'll be your host, Zach. I've been admissions rep here for about 3 years. So if you come through my doorstep and kind of apply, you'll be one of the ones that on here. So just let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll be the one kind of taking lead there. Oh, looks like. I saw some of y'all put in there the chat box is disabled. That is normally, I have it for the Q&A. So if you have questions, you can pop them in there, but the chat box won't be open. I apologize for that. All right. So our agenda today, I'm just going to go through the program overview. We're going to talk about all 4 of our programs we've got here at Flatiron School, give a little history about the school in general. We'll talk about the admissions process and also our career service and Q&A. So if you do have questions, like I said, please just let me know. I'm here to help, but let's get this rolling. All right, so Flatiron's goal at the end, our North Star, things that are very important to us, is really to enable the pursuit of a better life through education. And for what that means to us is to provide something tangible for y'all to work hard for and eventually get at the end goal is to launch your career, start a new job and with career services and get that going. There's 4 different opportunities and 4 different courses we help you do that. It's a big deal to really step in here and like learn a new skill, which is hard in itself, but also to go through a rigorous program like this. So there's a lot kind of on your plate as you kind of step into this realm, and we want to be able to help you out. Our origination, or where we started, was founded in 2012. Adam Inbar and Avi. You may, if you look through YouTube and the dark crevices of the internet, you'll find some old videos of them. Avi was just a very excitable guy who loved coding, and he used to like teach people coding out of coffee shops. Fast forward 10 years later, we are now our up and running company and been going for a couple of years now. We just had our 10th anniversary pretty recently, so you'll see that on the website. We do have campuses in New York and Denver currently for in-person classes. I'll get into more of that a little later, but that's for the full-timers. But everything else is online. So you can take this from the comfort of your home, office, workspaces, all over the US. We do have 4 different programs we're going to jump into today. And the last of the last needs is the graduates. At the end of the day, what people want is to get jobs, is launching their career here. It's something we've crafted and done really well here and created a great job seeking format to really help students get where they need to go. Just a couple of big name places, also small name places that people have landed jobs going through Flatiron School. I usually remind students that it's good to aim big. There's a lot of opportunity in these big time companies, but also stay open-minded to up and coming companies, startups, things like that. We want to help you get your foot in the door where you need it to be so we can help you out. But if you need, just be able to keep an open mind about different places you possibly could go. Before I jump into our 4 courses, I kind of just want to talk about pacing real quick. So I always say that we have 2 buckets. We have full-time and then we have part-time, which is also otherwise known as our flex class. So part-time, picture it as a Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Every day for the full 15 weeks. You are married to this course is the best way I can put it. 60 plus hours a week. You cannot hold a job, can't have vacations planned, weddings, all that good stuff. This is for students who manage to quit their jobs, put everything aside. That way they are able to kind of really focus on the program and kind of lean into it. It is a lot to do. Like you have to figure out how you're going to live for 15 weeks, without making income. But if you are able to make that transition and can fully commit to the course, it is a great pace to go and get the intensity you need to get out and in very quickly. On the other end, students who have other things going on in life, can't quit their job, got family, all these other things, we created this flex model, which is basically a 40 to 60 week course. Essentially, it is a structured self-paced course. You are able to move faster or slower depending on how you're taking in information. But this is more set for students who are like, I can log in this week, but I can't log in next week. You control your schedule. The only thing that changes is how quickly you finish. So if you're going consistently, you can finish in probably 10 months. If you're taking divots and stopping here and there, you'll probably finish somewhere closer to probably 12 or 13 months. It really depends on student to student. I also put in there, just know yourself as a student. If you need a lot of hands-on touch, or you need to be able to stay on this consistently, or you're really bad at organizing your schedule, flex could be hard for you just because you have to stay structured. On live, it's great if you can quit your job and fully commit to it, but it does go very quickly. So if you learn just a little slower, nothing wrong with that, but you just need to be able to prepare yourself as much as possible before jumping into this. Both are great paths. They're the same course. You're not missing out on anything. Career services at the end as well. But you just want to be very mindful of, what fits into your life, what fits into what you can keep up with. But your admissions reps will help you talk through those. All right, so I'm going to start jumping into the courses now. The first one up, something very popular, one of our most well-renowned courses, and our first one through here is software engineering. In short, your coding sites for people that you use every day. Front end, back end coding is kind of the name of the game here, where we're teaching you to build and develop websites and apps. You can do front end or back end. Our method behind the madness is really talking about getting y'all to a place where you can adapt to new languages on the fly and take what you learned as a pseudocode, so you can just learn new languages as you get into the job. Most of the things you're going to do while on the job is learning new languages. So here's a couple of snapshot of what you've been learning in the course: fundamentals, back end, front end, and then you have a final project. The idea between each module you'll do is you'll complete a project after completing a language. That way you're continuously building your portfolio and building upon what you learned. So at the very end, you have this great portfolio to show off to career services and future employers, while also getting full stacked and filled in. It's a great course structure to kind of get you all the things you need to prepare you for the next step, which is landing the job. Just an example project that you'll be kind of potentially working on when you get done with it. This one was called the Money Moon phase. One of the students took and built this app that's fully functional to manage his and his wife's finances. So they could log in here, put in all their information, their bank statements and all that, and it would compile it into a nice readable functional graph to kind of show them where they're losing money, where they could get better, where they could stay consistent, just kind of get a better snapshot of that. So thought it was a cool project for someone who just did a 15-week boot camp to pull this together and make a full functioning app. Definitely was something that was pretty impressive, and something you potentially could be making yourself. For someone who put in the chat, will I be emailing this out at the end of the session? Yes. So if this is going too fast or you want time to read through it some more, they will be sent to you. So just FYI. All right, our next course up is data science. So data science, in short, you're analyzing data to help businesses make good business decisions, essentially. A lot of sifting through data and analytics. You are just trying to be that forefront for any business to make their decisions. whether you're analyzing Steph Curry's three-point shot to figure out where he gets his best looks, or helping a student or business decipher what leads are the most valuable to a business when looking at it. You'll do a lot of different things as you go through the data science. You'll learn how to get the data, you'll learn how to clean the data, and then basically from there, put it into play. So with statistics and machine learning, you're kind of diving into different intervals and learning theory behind it, kind of coming up with the answers by using data to make a story, essentially, is what you're doing. I know a lot of things our students who come through here are worried about, like, oh, I don't have the greatest math background and things like that. I would say that most of this is basic math, or if someone would consider like algebra or calculus. We do have courses that you could take beforehand and kind of brush up on it. It is a very driven, kind of high intensity course, but it is probably one of, if not better than software engineering, how we have it structured. It's a fantastic course. Hits everything you need. You do some advanced topics that some other camps may not be offering at this, and you get to do some really, really cool projects that will help you be ready to hit the ground running after career services is finally there. One of cool projects somebody did for this one, Magic Millie, it basically used public data to analyze where women were represented in movie industry. So like directors and writers and producers, and overall, they would have this data out there to analyze the movie. So they came out and gave them a raw score of how they did representing women in film. Pretty cool way to just like gather data that's out there, floating out there and making decisions. I think I love data science more as you get into it, is just realizing how much it plays into making big decisions and how businesses run. So if you're business minded, or you like the idea of like putting a puzzle and you're curious about a lot of things, data science is a very good place to be. Number 3 on the list, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, I know a lot of people are thinking to themselves, I've seen the movies, they're taking down the airplanes, they're doing it from their little laptop and doing all that. That is the movies, that is not what cybersecurity is in real life. It is really just protecting hardware, software, electric data, making sure systems are safe, bank statements, things like that, pen testing, making sure that your security is safe. And the great thing about cybersecurity, it is a very booming industry. It's building up very high. Essentially what they're doing here is there's 90% unemployment rate, which simply means that there's a lot of opportunity out there. We don't have enough students out there and able to fill the jobs that are needed. So if you're someone who likes security, analysis, protecting, building firewalls, things like that, it's definitely up your alley. The cool thing about our cybersecurity program, you're going to put in probably upwards of 600 hours of work into this program. It is a very intense program, and it's kind of built like a college where you're taking multiple courses at once, compared to data science or software engineering, where there are different modules of strict things. This is more you're taking multiple classes at once. So math, science, history, same concept, but for this is what you're doing is different parts of security. So if you're looking, for network security, setting traps and catching threat actors and things like that, it's a very cool industry to kind of jump into and like really get a gist for what you would be doing. Natural titles that you'll be doing, cybersecurity engineer, cybersecurity analysis, network engineer, penetration tester. Really cool way to like build or protect walls depending on what you want to do, and a great program to jump into if cybersecurity has always been an interest of yours. Here are some good portfolio projects that they had set up for it. They did some so the cool thing about the cybersecurity program is you are going to get to do some real world work projects. This will give you a good leg up when you're kind of looking into the future job market. There are things in cybersecurity, like you need certificates and things like that to move forward in certain aspects of it. We don't provide that during the course, but any one you are going to need to be approved for, this course will prepare you for and get you ready for. The project you do here and the things you build will give a good foundation, so you'll be ready to go for the next step. But cybersecurity is definitely an intense course and something to look into. Our fourth and final course we have here on here is product design. Product design and just basically user experience and user interface. In short, using design, research, and data to solve problems and users' experiences. Best examples I like to use for this is like, think of the best apps you use every day and think of the worst apps. whether they're airline apps or shopping apps or workout apps, the color scheme, the buttons, like how the app flows, how it clicks to the next page, all of that was put in place by, with you in mind as the end user, doing research on what would keep people on their pages and attracted to it like that, and also kind of just build out something that's going to help draw users in more and more. What you'll learn in this product design course essentially is five modules. So you'll go through the process of UX and UI, the whole kind of process of each, making sure you're up to date on the tools you're going to use like Figma and Webflow, making sure you understand how to analyze the data competitively and using that, get you all set up. You'll move into studios, which are basically real case studies of things that you can build for projects. You'll have a chance to collaborate with other students. You'll have a chance to put out some of your ideas out there if you're trying to like build something of your own, and eventually get to the portfolio project where you're going to build out something that will be shown to future employers. Basically, with the product design course, user experience and user interface, it's definitely a booming market right now that's kind of really popular. I'd say post-COVID. It's a cool, if you're like the creative type, super artsy, like, and even if you're not those things particularly, someone who's just interested in design and trying to create a good flow to make something attractive to others, and also like a sociology aspect and getting into the minds of people and why certain things are certain ways. I'll pause there for a second, just see if there's some questions real quick. I saw on there those are good. That's perfect. The next thing we're just going to kind of go over is just the team, who you're going to kind of meet while you're in this phase right now. Essentially, what you're going to do through this admissions process is you're going to have a admissions rep like myself. I will help you with the applying. I'll help you with the admissions interview, talk about the assessments and things like that, and make sure that you're ready for day one. Other people you run into while in your process with us, we have an onboarding team that helps you with finances, paperwork, making sure you have everything you need to start on day one. And then we also have a education team. So if you have help, need help during pre-work, if you need to have help before you're starting a class or even during, you'll have coaches and things like that all throughout the process. This is kind of a snapshot of what you would do for any admissions process for any of 4 of our programs. The first thing you'll do is start with a written application. That's going to be asking you about your coding background. I'm going to ask why you're kind of getting into this, what's your kind of motivation for it. My advice for it is just put honest what you're feeling, how you got into this, for the research you've done up to this point. We're truly just interested to see like what you're getting into. We take new students all the time. It's not necessarily like, hey, if you don't have XYZ experience, these classes aren't for you. I honestly believe it's more driven on passion and drive. Anyone can really jump in and try to learn this stuff and slug through it. But at the end of the day, when this gets hard, you're going to need to lean on that passion, that drive you have for one of the 4 programs. So just think about that as you kind of apply and figure out, which one's going to fit you best. So like I said, submit an application will be kind of the first step. We talk about when you should apply because timeline is kind of a big deal when you're trying to plan for this. Each program you're going to go through has something we call pre-work. Pre-work ranges in time depending on what program you do, but for software engineering example, it's about 60 hours of work. 60 hours of work could take about a month to get done, maybe longer if you are new to coding, which is totally fine. My advice is to always plan ahead as far as possible. If you're a person who's going to go for the in-person or you're going to go for the full-time, you're planning to finish pre-work, you're planning to finish finances, and that's just with school. On the other side, you're planning, when am I going to quit my job? Have I saved up enough? How am I going to pay rent? Like those are things you got to think about on the back end, and then the front end, you got to finish the school so you can actually start on time. So I always say, like when you're thinking about applying, it's never too early. I'd say it's maybe early if you're like a year out and haven't looked at this at all. But if let's say you're 4 to 6 months ahead, that's okay. Your admissions reps should be kind of talking to you and kind of preparing a game plan because it's going to take some time to get you where you want to go. So no time like the present is a good plan to have on that. Complete your missions interview is the second step after applying. So once you apply, you'll immediately be prompted to book a time with one of our admissions reps, someone like myself. These interviews usually are done either like this or a video Zoom call, or they're done over the phone, depending on the preference. I would just, whatever you feel comfortable with, I would go with. We're not judging you if you decide to do Zoom versus phone call. We just want to talk to you however you're comfortable. During this process, it's non-technical. We're not trying to grill you with questions to put you in an uncomfortable place. We really just want to get to know you, what's your passion, your drive, and then really just set expectations for the course. We don't want you to have any like aha moments or like, oh no, I didn't know that was going to come my way. We want to prepare you as much as we can for class because you're spending a lot of time and money in this, and we want to make sure that this is the right decision for you. The timing matches up, all that good stuff. It's really important to us, and we just want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into and help you along the process. After you're done with our interview, if you haven't already, you will be prompted to take an admissions assessment. So our assessment is essentially our technical interview. If you've ever applied at another technical school, they usually ask you to do some type of coding or things like that. Ours isn't coding related. It is more based off of logic. Think SAT style questions. You're going to be getting into, it's 15 minutes long. It's going to be 50 questions, multiple choice. So essentially, you don't need anything to prepare for it. I would say just get on your desktop, take some time to focus on it, and just try to get as many as you've done as possible. You're not supposed to complete all 50 questions. It's really quality over quantity. So when you do start it, just take your time, take your breath, don't overthink it. If you don't know a question, you can skip through it very quickly and try to go to the next one. But take your time with it. And your admissions rep will explain this more in detail if you need it. For some example questions, just to give you a little snapshot of what that would look like. This reminds me of SAT stuff. I can remember that far back, but essentially these are the kind of questions you'll be asked. 15 minutes. I know sometimes people have like test anxiety and that clock's ticking down, but just take a deep breath and take your time. Quality over quantity. I'd rather you take your time, get one question right, and if you're really stuck on it, just skip it and go to the next one. After that, let's assume you passed the assessment, you did really well. You usually hear back from admissions rep either same day or I'd say a day after on your admissions decision. And does say 1 to 3 business days on there, but we are pretty quick to get back to you because we don't want you to wait. There's a lot of work ahead of you. So we'll usually give you a call, send you an email, text, depending on what you've discussed with your admissions rep on how you prefer to be contacted, and let you know the good news so we can move you forward and get you going in the process. Once you are fully admitted, you can begin pre-work. So I know I mentioned this a little earlier, but every discipline is going to have different pre-work. As you can see on the left-hand side over here, pre-work for like data science, cyber, and things like that, probably going to be 40 plus hours. Product design is around 30 hours, and then software engineering is 60 hours. It doesn't I wouldn't rank it on that like, oh, I'm going to take the one that has the least hours. Think of it as just like it's work that's preparing you for day one. We don't want students to just all show up all different levels, just like, hey, ready to learn. This is our way of making sure A, y'all are all prepared for class and staying on the same foot. B, you've given this enough thought and done enough coding or whether it be data science, whatever that is, to make you remember, do I still love this enough to do what I'm about to do, which is invest a lot of time and money in this, and just prepare you in general. We're not trying to stump you. We don't want you to walk in and feel like you're going to be floored and all this information at you. So it's just part of the process and what we want you to do. You will have access to Slack. They'll help you kind of go through the pre-work a little bit if you get stuck. There are coaches available too if you're really stuck on a question. And there's a couple of other resources you can use while you kind of go through the pre-work, so you're not completely alone. Like I said, pre-work takes about a month to get done, if not more. So if you're supposed to start on July 1st, make sure you're enrolled by June 1st at the latest. Your admissions rep usually will kind of map out a timeline with you depending where you're at. For example, we have an August 29th date coming up. I already know in my head by next week, if you're not enrolled, you're putting yourself in a pretty hard position to be done on time, just because you need to make sure you leave the runway for you. And before I move on, just want to pause, see if there's any questions popping up. I know that feels like it goes really fast. I apologize if I talk too fast. Pretty good. Okay, awesome. Tuition. I know this is always a big question. If you haven't seen already, tuition for our school is $16,900. There are 3 options to do payments, one of which is paying upfront. So once you're enrolled, you do pay your $500 deposit. That $500 goes straight toward tuition. So the remainder is paying $16,400. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can pay upfront, which is straight up, you do it 10 days before class is done. You can pay with your bank, you can pay by credit card. If you need us to split invoices, we can do that as well. I've seen people spread across credit cards or whatever that is. That's always an option. We do have an installment plan. Ed Aid is what we call it. It is 12 payments over 12 months, interest-free. You do go through a credit check to get this approved, but essentially if that's all set up, you'll pay either the 1st or the 15th of every month, depending on when you start. So if you start on the 3rd, pay on the 15th of every month. If you started on the 31st, you'll pay on the 1st of every month. So pretty simple on those. The other options that you can look into are loans. We use Ascent and Climb. Those are the personal lenders that we use. If you want to use someone from the outside, you can, but they're great. They usually have some good offers and they're very kind, and you can go talk to them. Things I always tell students too, like maybe you've never applied for a loan before, don't know how that process goes. That's completely fine. I'd highly recommend just reaching out to them and just say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. That's a great way to get the conversation going and just talk about it. Personal finances are a big piece of this because you do have to figure out how you're going to pay for school while if you're doing full-time while you're not working, or if you're doing flex while continuing to pay and work, can be a lot on your plate. So whatever way you kind of figure that out is the best way to get ahead of it. I know some students are really interested in scholarship opportunities, things that we have for that. We have diversity initiatives for women in tech. We have access scholarships for lower income. And then they have like a generalized scholarship you can apply for. This portion of it is usually after you've been admitted, after you paid your deposit, you can ask your admissions rep for an application for this. They basically just collect some basic info about why you think you deserve a scholarship, what's your current situation, and those scholarships usually range from about $1,000 to $2,000. So I always tell students, best case scenario, you've paid your $500 deposit. Let's say you get the full amount for a scholarship. You're looking around $14,400, $15,400 for tuition. So just an idea of what that would look like. So you can kind of start thinking about what that looks. I had a question in the chat saying, are there any money back options or refunds? Like if life happens, you can't do the course anymore. It is a case by case on that. It just depends on a lot of variables. So like where you live, state by state has different regulations, what payment option you chose, when you potentially would have to drop out. I would say, like, let's say it's a medical or family emergency, like, yes, we're happy to work with you, whether that be moving you to a new start date, whether that be giving you a refund or a partial refund, or setting you up for a new start date or something like that. I've heard different scenarios, but it is case by case because it's not like written in stone. I know every student has different situations. As for like money back guarantee, like we don't have anything like that. If you just took the course and just didn't feel like you liked it, we don't have anything like that, unfortunately. But if things happen while you're going throughout the course, you'll talk to student services and they'll lay out their options for you. We want to work with you the best we can. We know life happens and we're trying to help prepare the best we can for that, so you don't have to interrupt your education. All right, the good stuff. So one of our bread and butter and big things that we find really important here at Flatiron School is our career coaching, our career services in general. So once you're going through the program, let's say you're done, you graduated, you just did this intense program, you're doing great. Now we're going to move on to getting you a job. So day one, after you're done, you graduate, you'll get paired with a dedicated career coach. They'll start helping you with cover letters, resume building, LinkedIn presence, really just get an idea of like, okay, what have you learned? What jobs are you interested in? Companies you're interested in, remote, in-person, all those kind of variables come into play. I always tell students, it's not a magic bullet by any means, but between the network we have of employer partnerships, helping you just shoot your best shot every time you do go to apply for a job, following up, teaching you skills to be a successful job seeker. It is a full-time job finding a job. Luckily for any of these programs you're choosing, it is a hot market for any of the skills at this point. So all you're trying to do is create and write your story. So anything you've done from the past, doing the program and now looking for this job, like we're helping you create that story so you can present it as your best self as you go through these interviews. So it's something we do really well. We do place students very highly, and these students usually get jobs in like 1 to 3 months after they graduate. A lot of variables in there, salaries or waiting for how long or when they can start. There's just all over the board with that. I had some questions pop up here. Let me see. Is there a difference in certificate titles if you choose the online or salary career outlooks different because of that? No. So regardless if you are going for the full-time or the part-time, you're not missing out. You still get career services. You still get all the bells and whistles of what we're going to be doing. Salary hasn't differentiated. It still says you graduated from Flatiron School. It doesn't say specifically if you did part-time or full-time. We are there to make sure that we can transition that. And the certificate of completion is just like a document that says you completed this course, but the real value is going to come in career services and helping you get the job when it's all said and done. But that's a great question. Another one is, do students receive a degree or certificate upon completion of the course? Yes, they do get a certificate of completion. But like I said, that's just to show that you've done something and created that. But it's not going to be anything on top of like a college degree or anything. The real value will be the career services of it. I also had another one. What does the cohort community look like for the flex courses? That's a great question. So the flex course is interesting because everyone's going to be on different schedules, but you're going to find people within your cohort who are on your same schedule. So whether you're working nights, whether you're working weekends, whether you're working early, midday, there's a great number of students. And then what tends to happen is they create study groups. They create other opportunities with instructors. There's a great online presence and kind of how they can bring it. And my census of it really is, you create your own experience. There are students like yourself, if you're like super motivated, you're always there and you always want to chat about it and go. There's other students who match that kind of energy. There's other students who are like, hey, I can only put in 10 hours a week, but I'm moving at this like pace. That's okay too. You find your kind of people within that because flex is such a wide range. We also have a team monitoring all of our flex students just to make sure like, hey, if you haven't been logging in like a couple of weeks or a day, all right, we want to make sure you get back on track and you're making sure you're using the resources. Or if, hey, you're struggling with a community, like I don't feel connected, how can we get you more involved? Like those are things that they'll be monitoring to make sure that you are getting the best experience. But a lot of flex, I always say, is to get what you give. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of great resources for you, but you really have to make sure you set yourself up for success and just know how you learn. Got some on there. Perfect. If you have more questions, feel free, but I'll definitely ask that in a second. All right, career services. Job reports. I know this is a lot dated. It says 2020. We just had our new one come out probably like last week, actually. But those numbers still stand strong. I think it's now up to 87%. Students find jobs after graduation, which simply means students who do graduate this program, go through career services, land a job, and the average salary is around 74, 75K. I think that's a very kind number to put on there. Every number is going to be different depending where you live, obviously, and cost of living. But I would say, you can scale that very quickly. Depends how motivated you are to really kind of turn and burn and get this, because getting the skills is the first step. Getting the job is the mentorship that you're actually going to need. And then after that, you'll have learned the game and learn how to scale. Like those are going to be important attributes that you kind of learn as you go. But I always say, focus on one thing at a time. We set this up in mind that like, we want to support you every step of the way. And the best way to do that is to learn the skills, have the support to get the job, and then move on to your mentorship, which will be your future job. All right. I blew through. That was very fast. I'm sorry if I talk so fast, but would love just to hear questions, concerns, just anything out of the blue. You can pop it in the chat. Be happy to answer it for you. And thank you for all of the questions people have been going to. So much information. Everyone nailed it. They got everything they needed. Oh, here they come, rolling in now. Who are the product design instructors for full-time and October cohort? Great question. So our instructors, just in general, the kind of capacity of how we hire is the May lean instructor, usually I would say anywhere from 5 to 10 years experience, real world experience, but also has a very, I'd say, sociable kind of mentality. We need someone who can adapt to multiple personalities, who's interesting to learn from and be able to like teach, while also having a high capacity of like real world experience that they can learn under. You'll also have some technical advisors. Some of those advisors either had a little less work experience outside. Some of them even used to be students if we found they embodied what we did here at Flatiron School and are like a good hand to have, especially when you're like feeling frazzled and like, I can't do this. It's good to have a hand there that says like, hey, I've been through this and this is how I'm going to help you get through it. For like exact cohorts, I don't list who the instructor is till we get closer, because we have round robins on our instructors. They're all great, high quality and what we need, but we never want to overload an instructor or promise you one and then they switch it last minute, because it's all dependent on the needs of the cohorts. That's a good question. I noticed that software engineering teaches Ruby, but I've seen that Python elsewhere is either or why did Flatiron choose Ruby or over Python? It's a great question. I get that pretty often. Ruby is most written like English. So when we first started doing this, we want to make sure that if you're brand new to coding, let's start from the base up and build from there. Ruby and Python are similar in a sense that they are like foundational languages. I would say they've been around and very well known. When people start coding, that's kind of what they grab toward. And as we kind of go forward, like Python we use a lot in data science. We don't use the software engineering, but going through the software engineering course, you'll be able to adapt and learn Python very easily, just like you pick up any other language after you have the foundations down. So that's kind of one of the main reasons that we do that. I do know that they are talking about adding Python to software engineering as it's growing in popularity, and we do update our curriculum depending on the demand, and also what employers are looking for. And a lot of employers still survey very highly that they do use Ruby still today. So those are kind of reasons why we keep it in there. I don't think one's worse or the other. If you're like judging people's curriculum, if they do or don't have something, I think all curriculums are great as you're kind of going through your search for these schools. You just got to find the one that makes sense, but that's kind of why we teach Ruby. Got another one here. What do weekly assignments look like? What is the deferral process? So for full-time, so if you're in full-time, picture it like you have morning stand up in the morning, you'll have 1 hour of lecture, you'll jump into coding challenges, you'll break for lunch, you'll pick it back up with instructors for another lecture, you'll do some lab work, you'll move into homework, and then maybe some one-on-one time with the instructor before you go home. Full-time's a constant. There's no like, if you're falling off the wagon, like we're trying to pull you on as quickly as possible. There is a lot of help because we can't let you get too far from the group because we only have 3 weeks per module. But just think of it as like you have to keep up with this very intense pace, throwing 20 new things at you at once. You're catching it, you're digesting it, and you're moving forward. So there's a lot of help there to make sure you get where you need to be. So that's one part of it. As for deferral process, you're allowed to take a module one time. So if you fail one of the 5 modules, they'll let you retake it. But keep in mind, you plan for a 15-week course. If you did another 3 weeks, now that's an 18-week course. Maybe you didn't plan that financially. There's a lot of things like that's not to scare you or anything like that. That's just to keep in mind is as you're planning for this, how you're preparing for this course is crucial. Coding a little bit every day, building like conditioning of like coding, getting it in, getting it out. Because once you get into that course, it's great to go very quickly, but you're in it. So just something to think about as you go, but definitely good to know your exits as well when that kind of comes across. How can I best prepare for the 15-minute placement test? There are articles that we actually list, and I'm happy to email them to you that literally are titled How to Pass the Admissions Assessment. It really just gives you examples. I think it's about familiarizing yourself with like what's being thrown at you because it feels like a mystery box. Another thing too is you are allowed 2 attempts. So let's say you don't do well on the first attempt, you can take it one more time, and usually students are just fine on that. I would say don't stress too much about it. I think it's more mental than you think. Most students do really, really well on it. And even if you have to take it again, it's okay. The real work is going to be that pre-work. Once you get to that, that's the real coding. That's the nitty gritty that you're going to really have to get into to like figure out where am I at and how much work do I need to continue to put in. Is it possible to do a flex program, but treat it like a full-time program to make it the program a little less intense? It's a great question. Yes, you can. I still would say because of how it's structured, you still wouldn't move as fast. Like I've had people come to me and say, hey, I'm going to take the flex course, but I'm going to do it in 15 weeks, like the full time. It's not logistically possible just because of the intensity that they're putting in those hours. I would say if you're like really putting in work, you probably finish it in, I'd say 7 to 10 months, somewhere in there. So you're really only shaving off like 2 months of the part-time really. But I totally understand like I know I'm talking big terms of like, it's intense, but that's just not to sugarcoat it. If you can complete the pre-work and get in a good place, you usually can handle live. And if you're in a place where you don't have to work and you can do full-time, I would just suggest doing the full-time instead of having to do flex and feeling like, I wish I just had more intensity, because you'll get stronger and stronger as you go. So maybe the live would actually fit you better. Do students receive a degree or certificate of completion? It is a certificate. So it just says it's digital. Congratulations, you completed Flatiron School and your degree is software engineering, product design, cybersecurity, whatever one you do. And you'll get a little emblem you can put on your LinkedIn. It's pretty cool. On average, how many people in one cohort for full-time software engineering? How many people will be at the end or till the end? Good question. So I'd say for full-time, anywhere from 20 to 25. In person is probably closer to probably 20. We don't like to max it out more than we can chew, but also we don't want anyone feeling like a number in class, because this is an intense course. Like I said, we got to keep everyone on the wagon and we don't want you all to fall off. So it's usually like that. And then there's multiple cohorts running at once. So like, let's say we have more than 25, then the next one starts filling up. Now that's 25 and 25, so on and so forth. So that way they have their one lead instructor and they have their team that kind of goes out. So that way everyone's getting what they need. And then how many people till the end? Honestly, people who do live and prepare for it, they all make it to the end, if most of them. I know our outcomes are like 86%. I would say the people who don't make it either dropped because of family reasons, dropped because they had to go work again, dropped maybe occasionally because it's too intense and they want to go do the flex course instead. Those are normal reasons I see. It's not too unheard of. And like, if you're planning for this to be your life, I think the live people are in it to win it. It's a lot to jump in for. So there's a different kind of drive, I think. So they usually stick around. Are assessments time for coding problems? No. So the assessment, it's a 15-minute quiz, but it's no coding. So it is time for 15 minutes, 50 multiple choice questions, but nothing to worry about when it comes to that. For how long is career service available after you graduate? If your first role is contract, could you use career service to help you get the next role? Great question. So it lasts for 3 months. We put that on there usually just to motivate, but at the same time, most students are getting jobs pretty quickly if they're doing the steps they need to be successful. And as for coming back, yes, they do allow students to come back. I think they put it at like 3 times a year if you want to come back for some extra help. To be frank, what happens usually is students go find that first job, they learn the craft, and then they keep it from there and don't come back because it just leads to the next job and the next job. So it kind of keeps rolling from there. Are there assessments weekly? In the course, there's not assessments per se, it's coding challenges. So it's basically taking what you learned for that week. And then at the end of the week, they usually have a coding challenge to kind of have everything that you learned for that week is what they call them. Should full-time online expect to commit 60 plus hours a week? Yes. So if you're doing full-time, it is going to be, I'd say 60 plus. I can't put a time limit on, like, we're not going to keep you after hours or anything. We want you to go home and sleep and rest and come back the next day recharged. But I always say, like, if student A just naturally picks things up, comes in, comes out, clocks in from 9 to 6 and good to go. And student B still is sharp, but just takes longer to learn it. So maybe you're coming in early or you're staying late or you're making more time with the instructor. I don't count those hours. Like I'm not sitting there calculating my day, but if it's a whatever it takes attitude. So you can be either student, both are successful. It really just comes down to how you're learning and the effort you may need to put in, depending where you're at. That's why I say if you can start coding just small, like little intricals and build from there, you can get better and better. That way you prepare for the class, especially for the intense one. How can I prepare for the data science program? I'm also interested in cybersecurity. There are both of our pre-works, actually for all of our courses are free online right now. You can go on there if you want to start trying there. My suggestion when you're starting out is start with this like you're doing now, general overview of courses, and then start by doing, and maybe just like focus on one subject at a time. So this month, I'm just focusing on data science. You could say it's a month, you could say it's 3 weeks, a week, whatever that is, but just start poking around, learning the terms, watching lectures. We have specific webinars just for specific courses if you want more nitty gritty. Just you got to start by doing, because I can pump you with information all day long. But at the end of the day, until you actually do the work, that's what you're going to trigger in your head. I like this stuff, I can do it, or this is hard, I'm not really inspired. Because the jobs between, like, let's say cybersecurity and data science are going to be drastically different. So it's not just what you're learning, the work is going to be different. So you just want to make sure you love it. So my suggestion would be start with some webinars, more concrete to those subjects, start on our free pre-work that you can start on. And then if you want to, like I always recommend like a Udemy course. If you haven't heard of that, it's UDEMY. They're not affiliated with us. They're just great, cheap courses that you could buy for like a short spurt just to see if you like it. I mean, if you spend 20 bucks on a course and you don't like it, 20 bucks, it's not the worst thing in the world. So if you love it, then you can move to a boot camp, which pay more money to come here to do this. For full-time students, how many classes are there a day? So lecture-wise, you're going to have 2, usually just 1, but they have 2 max, and they are centralized lectures, which simply means you're going to be sitting and like you'll have a screen of a bunch of other students listening to that 1-hour lecture, but then you'll go back to your cohort to discuss. So you're not like having to discuss in this huge room. It's just one, and we don't plan on melting your brain for 8 hours a day. We just want to take something. Okay, did you learn this? Let's put it into practice. Let's practice with it. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next one. So that's how our teaching style will kind of go to build upon that. I'm in August 8th cohort. I was wondering about the assessment and the program itself, not the pre-course work. Let's see. August 8th cohort, I was wondering about the assessment program. So for the August 8th cohort, this is advanced information, people who have started and gotten through pre-work, I assume you're talking about at the end, there is an assessment to just encompass everything you learned. So after you finish pre-work, there is something on there that will help you basically take a quiz that you have to get like an 80% on, just to make sure you can start on time and that you kept the information that you learned. You get 3 attempts on that quiz. For y'all who haven't even applied yet, I wouldn't worry about that tidbit yet. More so for people who are already in it. They'll explain more what that looks like, just to make sure that you kept in what the pre-work is. And Shannon, if you need to, my email's on there. You can email me back if you do have any questions or things like that, and we can talk more in detail with that. Are there going to be group projects for software engineering course? Yes. So for the full-time, there are group projects for the first 3 projects. The last 2 are individualized. We do that so everyone can get some collaboration skills in that. For the flex one, we have individualized projects only. We simply do that because we can't make people show up at certain times and days when it's built like a flex course to log in when you want. So in that case, you do individualized projects, but they are graded by instructors and things like that. But that's a good question. Justin James, hey Zach, have you gone through this course yourself? If so, how was your experience? What do you wish you knew before going into it? Great question. I am not a software engineer, and like I'm taking the product design course currently, but I didn't do the software engineering route. My job has always been working closely with instructors, and my job is expectation settings. I see the amazing work students come in and do day in, day out, and like you can really change your life in a few weeks, few months, which is really impressive. I think people see the money and the remoteness, and they're like, I want that. That's going to be great. In theory, that is all great, but in practice, the work it takes to get there is far and in between. If everyone could code, they would. And, I think anyone can pick this up. Whether you have the passion or the drive for it, that's something else. Like, you really need to start coding by yourself, start putting in some work and some time, kind of figure out, is this something that I want? Can I see myself doing this every day, day in, day out? Working, reaching out to current students, go on LinkedIn and go to a Flatiron page and look for students. People love to share their experience. There's articles about people in class and things like that. I mean, my number one driver is the money and time are good, but you have to figure out, do I want to do this long term? I think I've seen students get into this for, I'd say, the wrong reasons, or just jump into it and just say I'm just excited and let's go. And they get there and they feel very bum rushed. I don't want you to feel that. It's natural to feel, tired, it's exhausted, and get there and be I'm in over my head. Those are normal feelings. Imposter syndrome, classic, happens all the time. But I would just give you advice of if you prepared to succeed, then you'll be ready to go. You're not going to learn this all overnight. It's a process. Be kind to yourself as you learn this. And just, there's a lot out there, do your research, but narrow it down. I know there's other schools out there too. Don't overthink it. Just think, where do I want to put my time and efforts? And do I love this enough to do it long term? But that's my best advice for that. For full-time, are there projects to work with other programs cross-functionally, working on project cross-functionally, engineers and designers? That's a great question. So for product design, for example, mainly, we have had, it's not built in the curriculum, but they are letting students who are excelling in the course, who have extra free time, to go work with other software engineers to just play around and build something for concepts or whatever that is. So whether UX, UI, you're building the actual what you're putting out there, and then the back-end designer, software engineers designing the flow of it. So those are actual projects you can actually do. I've seen a few students do them. It's pretty cool. We love seeing the collaboration. I think as we develop more and more students and get cohorts to line up in person, those will be more common as we go. What has your experience been like in the product design course? What advice would you have before starting it? I started because it was out of the four that seemed like my alley of creativeness. I started with some Udemy courses, some basic free stuff online, like UX, UI design. And I was drawn to about the sociology aspect. My favorite metaphor is UX, UI is like riding a horse. UX is what you experience while you're on the horse. UI are the sternums and the straps and everything that helps a more enjoyable experience. It is a lot of research, which I don't really love, but it is important. There's other aspects of creativity and just having some flow to what certain things move left to right. What I would suggest before starting it is just starting with the free resources like I did. You don't really know what you know until you're in it. If you can go get a free course on Figma or Miro, most of the course is learning these tools that you're going to use to be successful, and they're in depth, they're very dense tools. So I don't know if you're someone who picks up things really quickly, like picking up a new app or an iPhone or something like that, but it does some tinkering some time. So I would start there, just something basic. Code Academy, other competitors out there, they have some good free courses too. I would definitely just go check out, think by doing. I know I was getting into really until I really started it, and I read so many articles, but I would just start it and see how it goes for you. You won't learn it overnight, but take your time with it. How many days a week does full-time course need for classes? Which days? Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'll drive for Uber, or oh, I can make my night job, don't do that to yourself. For the full-time, it is full-time. Students who decide, oh, I'm going to hold a job and do this, end up not doing well. I've had students start literally this week and call me and hey, I was trying to hold this job. And I was like, you can't hold a job. I'm sorry, this just is what it is. What I would suggest to you, if you obviously have life to deal with, plan for it, right? How can you have a long-term goal for in 6 months to either save enough or be in a position where you can quit your job to do this? Or, buckle down, how can I do the flex program and really get into it? I know it's like lesser of great evils, but how you plan for that is really important to how you're going to do in the course. And you're spending a lot of time and money on this. Like, I don't want you to go in there and have to like split your focus. It'll just recipe for disaster. You're spending some time. You want to make sure you're getting your money's worth of it. Amazing questions, everyone. Thank you guys for participating in that. Hopefully all those feel answered. Any more? All great questions. All right. Well, it was a pleasure hosting y'all. Please let me know if y'all need anything. You will be emailed this video recording. You'll get the slide deck. And then if you just have any questions at all, please pop me an email, throw some time on my calendar. I'm trying to see if I can put this on here so you guys can see in the chat. I don't know if you guys can at least see my zachary.little@flatironschool.com. That's a great way to reach me if you need something, but it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks.